You're live.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education Finance Committee. Today is Wednesday, July 8th, 2026, and the time is 5 p.m. I should have said the Norwalk Board of Education Finance Committee meeting. Joining me tonight are board members Diana Carpio and Marcus Jaime. Garrett Oliver is not with us this evening. Also with us is Norwalk Public Schools CFO, Mr. Lunda Asmani. First, I will entertain a motion to approve the April 15, 2026 minutes.
Motioned.
Motion by Ms. Carpio. First, I should note that there are some revisions. My name was left off of the last one, and so I want to make sure that it goes into the record that I was in attendance at that meeting on April 15th. Is there a second with the changes?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Jaime, and the motion is passed. Are there any folks online to make any public comments? Any email comments that we have received will be included in the record. So next on the agenda is the FY 26 closeout. Mr. Asmani, did you want to make that presentation?
Yes, let me share my screen. There we go. Can you see my screen?
Let's see. Right now it's a black screen, hoping it will pop up soon.
Okay, let's see.
Here we go. That's nice.
You can see it here?
Yes.
Got
a little jetty there with some water. Very nice.
I know. I have them. These are auto. Every day I'm surprised with a new screensaver.
Yes.
And I selected like a geography theme. So it shows cities and landscapes and yeah, so always
Very
envious
nice.
of somebody every day I begin my day. Like somebody's actually out there. Right. So I want to give you an update of where we are with the financials of the year for the year that ended June 30th. This is preliminary because we're still posting items, so it's not everything complete. But I wanted to give you the opportunity to kind of let you know where we are. The biggest driver of our budget, as you know, is salaries and benefits. Our teachers elect to a number of teachers elect to have their pay paid out in the summer. So we have 3 summer payrolls, even though they hit this new year, but they get booked back because they're basically last year's salaries. So we have 2 in July, and then the very last one is in August. And so these reflect on the financials as the payroll happens. We do have an estimate. It's about $6 or $7 million or so of salaries that haven't yet hit. And then there are other invoices trickle in throughout as we close out the year. We have until August 30th to close out and to pay invoices. So there are goods and services that we received in June that we may not get invoiced until July. And so we follow up with our school leaders and other folks to get those invoices in. But I did want to give you a sense of what's happening. So other than the salaries, which is a big chunk, and a couple of other invoices, most of the other items are in, but the salaries are a big chunk. So you'll see that there's a bit left in terms of funding, but it's because salaries are not yet. Yes.
We're just seeing are we supposed to be seeing something else? Because we're still just seeing your jetty with the beautiful water. It didn't
Let me see.
advance.
Okay.
Here we go. There you go.
Oh,
Perfect.
there we go. Okay. That too many screens. All right, perfect. So as I mentioned, so for the general fund, we had a budget of 247 million in total. Last year, this time we ended the year having spent overall in the general fund 233 million. So as I mentioned, you'll see that year to date it shows 226. largely driven by these three payrolls for teacher salaries that haven't yet hit the accounts. So that's really what the difference is there. But everything else is on track. So with respect to salaries, you'll see here that our year to date, last year we had spent 146.9. This year, our adjusted budget for salaries about 144. We would be close to that number when we close out the year. You will notice that at the 144 mark, it would be slightly less than the 146 million we hit the year before. Part of that has to do with vacancies that haven't been filled, but we also had some positions that um, just aren't when we did the budget last year. There were some position reductions, and therefore that this is kind of what we would anticipate to see. Benefits are adjusted is 39 million, which is what we would expect to have hit by the end of the year. This time last year we ended with 31.6. The benefits, the biggest chunk of benefits are transfers for our health insurance. And we do 4 quarterly transfers. So far, we've done 3, and there's 1 quarterly transfer that we do at the end of the year. We kind of wait to see once all the payrolls is posted, and we do a truing up to make sure that we transfer funds into that account for the year that ended. Later, when I give you an update for this year, we'll have some conversations about the teachers' health insurance for this coming year that we've had conversations about. Professional technical services, these are services that we provide that we contract out. These include things like special education services, our outsourced SPED services with our who see our students. That's the biggest driver of this item. And again, you'll see here that year to date, we're at 10.5 million. The budget was about 11.3. When we close out the year, you'll get closer to that $11 million number when the year closes. Property services, these are services for our facilities and care of our facilities. Most of these items have been paid, 10.8. We do have a couple of invoices. Again, services that were rendered through June, we get those invoices. We're getting those invoices now, mid-July to end of July. We'll get those. We'll try and turn around, pay those quickly. These invoices will likely get paid in August, but again, they will get booked back to the month of to the month of June. Other student services, this is by far our biggest single expense.
Mr. Asmani, you're not advancing. I'm sorry to cut you.
What are you seeing on your end?
You're showing benefits. I know because I've got it on my phone. I've got it up. I'm following you, but you're still on benefits and you just did prop services, right?
They did. Diana, what are you seeing? Is it not advancing on your end too?
I just moved to property services. It was on the
I see
screen
property
before.
Oh,
So
you
am
see
I the only
property
one that's
services
not
now.
advancing?
It may be you,
Yes.
Sherry.
Really?
And now are
Okay.
you seeing other student services?
Yes.
I still see benefits. Okay, keep going. I've got it on my phone. Don't worry about it. Keep going.
Okay. Sorry about that. So other student services, this is primarily the biggest driver for the student services are outsourced expenses for special education. So this is an area where we are seeing an increase. You'll see that last year we had spent about 26 million. This year we will spend a little bit more than that. Our adjusted budget right now is about 27 million. This is kind of where we think we will end. We do have students that are placed and we're still getting those invoices, but that's primarily what other student services includes. Supplies and materials, these are supplies that we buy for different services. Typically, we are seeing a slowing down just because of the supply. Some of there's shortages in supplies, but also the timing of deliveries, and therefore we don't pay for supplies until the supplies have been delivered. And so once they're delivered is when we make the payment. And so with some of the supply chain issues, we have been seeing some slowing down in when supplies get delivered. So the adjusted budget is 9.3 million. Year to date, we've spent 8. We'll probably get closer to that 9 million number once we've been invoiced and we've paid for all of our supplies and materials. Included here are also, well, yeah, those are mainly school supplies and materials. There are quite a number of supplies that we also buy at the end of the year, just when the buildings are empty, and therefore that is also a timing as well of supplies and materials. Equipment, same story. These are things that we buy, student equipment, school equipment. We're at 1.1 million. Our budget was 1.5 million. By the time we close out the year, we will be closer to that 1.5 million. And then other objects, I believe this is pretty much paid for everything. Other objects are things that are not covered in those supplies and materials. It's about $150,000 a year, and that's what we've done so far, but the budget was 170, and we'll be closer to that number when we close out the year as well. And then I think the last one here are our transfers to the food services fund, and I'll talk about the food services fund next. So you'll see that in FY25, we did not transfer any funding to the food services account. We've talked about this, given some of the funding challenges last year. The budgeted amount for food services when we began the budget was just about 670,000. We have really been working hard, and interim superintendent Fayos and her team in making sure that this year we did not want the food services fund to spend more than it brought in. And so throughout the year, we have been looking for savings in other areas so that we could transfer funds into the food services account. So year to date, we've transferred 1.6 million, which is how much was needed to keep that food services fund even for this fiscal year. So that's why you see that there's that difference between those two accounts. Largely driven by the cost of food services. You'll recall that this year, the year that's ending, we were still on CEP. Our reimbursement rates for CEP were lower. We did have some funding challenges getting providers to fund some of these programs, but we were able to successfully transfer $1.6 million into the food services fund, which keeps that food services fund for this year balanced and even. So looking at the actual food services fund itself, the adjusted budget was 7.8 million. Year to date, we've spent 6.7, and that ties with the amount of money that we transferred into the food services fund. We also received grants. So you combine that 1.6 million plus about another $5 million in federal grants that we get, it would total this $6.7 million that we spent in the food services fund. The year before, we were not able to transfer any funding again into the food services fund. Grants, year to date, we're at 29.6. We do have a number of positions that are paid out of grants. So there are salaries, as I mentioned earlier, that have not yet hit the grant account. But you will see last year we had spent about $41 million in grants. This year we'll probably be closer to 32. And that really speaks to that funding drop in grants. We've been sharing with you that grant resources are not what they used to be, and so we will continue to see a decline in how much we have available in grants and how much we actually spend in grants. So that does conclude the just the year-to-date financials. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have before I give you an update of the current budget years.
Does anybody have any questions before we proceed? So if there's no questions, Linda, if you want to go on to do the budget update for FY27.
And I did provide you with the line item information. So all of these lines you have in your packet. So I won't go into that. And with that, I will transition to the year-to-date financials. Can you see this? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to spend time just on the general fund, just to give you an update. As you recall, this is the current year's budget that you approved back in May. It does reflect a 4.1% increase year over year in local dollars. But as you recall, there was on the grant side, we did receive some additional funding on the grants. So combining the local and the additional grants, what we had available year over year was a 4.91%. The one thing that I did want to share with you is when this budget was approved, the assumption that we had in here was the teachers' health insurance staying moving to the state plan. And as you know, that didn't happen. And so the teachers are still on the Cigna plan, which saw a 32% increase. So that is about a $3 million expense that is unaccounted for in this budget. As we were going through the budget, we did make, obviously, we made the board aware, we made the city aware at the time because we hadn't settled that, finished those negotiations. We've had conversations with the city now that it's done. We are going to be meeting with the city in the upcoming weeks to see how we are able to make this whole. The insurance fund actually sits on the city side. So as I mentioned, those transfers into the insurance account is money that we pull from the Board of Ed, and the fund itself sits on the city side as a standalone account for our insurance. And therefore, the plan for this year is we would transfer what we have budgeted this year and then look to the city and have conversations about making up the difference. The first part of that conversation was one, understanding the numbers. When we met and we had our consultant do the analysis, the delta was about $3 million or so. The teachers union, they did their own calculations, and you may have seen this in the media, where their calculations were showing about a $1.5 or $1.6 million number. So there was a difference between the number that our consultants were giving us and the number that the teachers consultant was giving them. And so part of the conversation with the city was to kind of give them an understanding of why is there the difference. And the difference is primarily driven by the fact that in the teacher's health insurance account, it's a high deductible account. Part of the agreement was that the Board of Ed will fund 50% of those contributions toward the health savings account. The employees have the option of either topping up what the board puts in the health savings account or not. So we have it about 50-50 split. Half of our employees are topping up what the board is giving, and some are just using what the board provides. The expense to the board is about $1.8 million a year. That expense only exists because we are on this high deductible plan. So when we did the calculations and the savings, we calculate that as a savings if we were to move out because we would not have that expense. In addition to the differential of the 32% premiums compared to the 12.5%. So that is the primary difference between the numbers that the health consultants for the board provide and the numbers that the teachers were presenting. And so the first part of this was to kind of finding an explanation as to why the difference exists. Now that we've understand that, we will then be meeting with the city to talk about how do we make these adjustments. The health insurance plan goes into effect on September 1, so it doesn't begin July 1. Goes into effect September 1, so our current rates will continue until September. In September is when the new rates kick in for the full year through August 30th of that following year. So we do have a period of time to work with the city to get to the funding amount that's necessary for this. But I did want to give you that update because I've heard some questions about what's happening with insurance account, what are the numbers, why are the numbers different. But I did want to provide, not wait until September for the committee to meet, but meet with you sooner to just give you an update. And then also if you had any questions, to give you the opportunity to ask me questions as it relates to that. So that's my year-to-date update.
So what you're saying is that, so there's a 32% increase, but also the 3 million that the Board of Ed shows includes their HSA that the board funds, whereas
Correct.
the teachers differential does not include that part.
Correct. The calculations that the teachers
Yeah.
provided just looked at the differential in the
Right.
premiums. And when
Right.
you compare their premium differential calculations and our premium differential calculations, we're similar. We don't vary much. There's some things
Mhm.
that change depending on what census count you used.
Mhm.
So that particular number doesn't vary much between our number and NFT's number.
But
The
that
difference is
32%, but
yes,
that 32% is a 32% increase in premium.
correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So like you said, fortunately, it doesn't start until September. So you guys have some time to try to figure out how that's going to work.
Yes. And as far as the transfers happen, we do have transfers in place that will carry us even beyond September. But getting into March and April, we probably will not have enough to fully cover that. And so that's the conversation that we will be engaging with our partners on the city side and what we said we would do. So those conversations will probably begin in the next couple of weeks.
And just so people understand, I know people have talked about, well, why can't the teachers go on the other plan? But given they have a contract, we cannot compel them to take the plan that everybody else is on, correct?
Yes, that's correct. That was part of the collective bargaining agreement. So they have the right to stay where they are.
Okay. I think that is it. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Diana or Marcus, are you guys, yes, Marcus.
I just have a quick question. I'm sorry, Lunde, if I didn't hear you,
Yes.
but when are you meeting with the city to resolve this? I know you said
Next
a couple
couple,
of weeks.
yeah, we're gonna start meetings in the next couple of weeks. I would assume it's not gonna be a one meeting type of conversation. There'll be multiple conversations with the city. I think this board at some point, well, we will also engage either through Sherry as the finance chair and counterparts on the city side. But that's when we would start these conversations.
You know, Linda, I'm thinking what it might be good for you to do too, if you could very quickly, is just kind of talk about the history of this, because initially the teachers were on the same plan, were on the state plan, right? And I guess it was 2 years ago when they decided to change because they were expecting cost savings. So you might want to just
Sure.
give a little quick snapshot for Marcus, because I don't think he knows about the history.
Yes. So when we first started, I'll go back even further. I believe it was around 2015, 2016. We were, the city and the board, we were all self-insured. We were self-insured and we funded our own health insurance plans. Around that time, the state came out with the state partnership plan, which was a fully insured plan. And at the time, many cities, Norwalk included, transitioned from the self-insured plan to the fully insured plan funded by the state. So all of the Board of Ed employees, all of the city employees, we all moved to the state partnership plan, which is what it's called. And about 2.5 years ago, when the teachers' contract came up, there was a clause in their contract that gave them the option to to move out of the state plan and go to a high deductible plan. Part of the conversation in that agreement, when we had initially talked to folks at the state, they had told us that they would not allow us to just move one group of employees out. We would either all have to move out or all of us would have to stay. So when we had that negotiation at the time, the agreement was that we would actually survey all the unions to see if they wanted to leave and go to the fully insured plan. We had those conversations. All the unions, except the teachers union, voted to stay with the state plan. It was only the teachers union that voted to move out of the state plan. So then we went back to the state. The union had asked, could you go back to the state and see if they would allow us to exit and the rest to stay? We said, well, initially they told us that that wasn't the case, but we went back to the state and we said, listen, this is what's happened. all of the unions except the teachers want to stay. Would you be okay if we just move the teachers out and everybody else stayed? They went through their review, through their claims history, and then they gave us that permission to allow the teachers to move out. So that's how we ended up with only the teachers moving out of the state plan and all of the other unions staying in the state plan, because the members of those other unions didn't want to leave. It was just the members of the teachers union that wanted to leave to the high deductible plan. So that's how we kind of ended where we are now.
Thank you so much
Thank
for that,
you.
Linda. Sherry as well. Thank you.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
Yeah. But it was important for you to have the history on that. So if there are not any other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Well, before we adjourn, I don't have a
Yes.
question. I just wanted to make a comment, how important and how the public, to inform the public that this is a fluid budget and that finance is constantly changing, and they do work through the summer. Because I know there's been some questions on, how this is done. Is it on hold until September? And it's not on hold. It's constantly being looked at.
Thanks for that, Diana. So with that, I will then ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Marcus.
Seconded.
Second by Ms. Carpio. We are adjourned at 5:28 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Osmani, for this report, and onward and upward.
Onward
Thank
and
you.
Thank
upward.
you, Linda.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Goodbye, Linda.
Thanks.
Thank you, Linda.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.